have no idea which lives you will touch and which ones you will save. This is a line from Matthew Lopez's play, The Inheritance. I chose this quote because I believe that it completely expresses the playwright's intentions with every play he writes. Today, my intentions are to inform you about the playwright Matthew Lopez. For today's speech, I've composed research about Matthew Lopez, read his plays The Legend of Georgia McBride, The Inheritance, as well as watched the film he based it off of, Howard's End. Throughout this speech, I'll be talking about three main points: his life and career, his writing process, and his writing philosophy. To fully grasp Lopez's writing process and philosophy, we must first take a look at his life and career. In an interview with Center Stage, Lopez states, "As a teenager, I had a friend who started to do drag, and I wanted to go to the club. So my introduction to drag was backstage. In the dressing room, watching them get ready, get done up for battle." This quote shows how Lopez got introduced to drag. It also shows that he viewed drag queens as warriors, saying that they got done up for battle. It shows that he admired them for the work they produced, and this carries on later on in his life. In an interview with Playbill.com, Lopez discusses his love for Howard's End as a teenager. Lopez states, "As a Puerto Rican teenager living in Florida, I found unexpected kindred spirits in Merchant Ivory's film adaptation of Howard's End. There was nothing that could have explained it. I was watching a movie about white Edwardans squabbling over a country estate in England. With that one day at the movies, it seems pretty amazing to me how stark the difference was between the before and after in my life. What was so unexpected was that I was this Puerto Rican teenager living in the Florida Panhandle. I would not be included in the prime demographic for the story set in Edwardian England." From this quote, we can infer that Lopez, from a very young age, learned how to see through his lack of representation in films, to seek universal truths that spoke to him. It shows that Howard's End was not only an incredibly important turning point in his life, but also an obsession. Lopez would then go on to read the novel multiple times, as well as rewatch the film. Lopez, whether it be from drag to film, had many obsessions in his teenage years. These obsessions weren't bad, though. It led to a deeper understanding of himself and of others. It also led to a multitude of awards. The InheritancePlay.com states that it is the winner of more Best New Play awards than any other in West End history, including the 19 Olivier Award. This is not only an amazing accomplishment, but it proves how impactful and thoughtful the show is. This got me thinking, how did he come up with these revolutionary new ideas? In an interview with BroadwayDirect.com, Lopez states, "The more I researched, I realized that Forrester couldn't have written any of his stories without being a gay man, closeted or otherwise. His gayness was the lifeblood of his writing. It informed everything. How he viewed relationships between people and how he viewed his own society." This epiphany led perfectly into my next point, his writing process. I believe Lopez's writing process is just living, experiencing, and then writing it all down. In an interview with The New Yorker, Lopez states, "In a draft of The Inheritance, I gave Toby Darling, a New York native who was transplanted to the South as a child, some of my own experiences, including having sunflower seeds spat on him on the school bus. No one knew what to do with this sensitive, sing-songy, twinkle-toed, wide-eyed, smiling, broken-hearted being who actually believed that people had his best interests at heart." This quote gives an example on how Lopez incorporates his own life in his writing process. When exploring what to write about, Lopez stops and reflects back on past experiences that he has had. He waits for life to provide him what he writes next. Through his writing, he reflects his own personal truths. He makes sure his process to include others. The Queer Review states, "There is no storytelling without an engaged audience, and Lopez's writing and Daldry's direction invite us to feel like active participants. Our imaginations engage throughout, as if we are a part of the creation of the very story being told." This quote proves that Lopez's writing process, he not only searches for a way to express his own personal truths, but how to include the audience as a part of the story. He strives to find a way to write his own truths, but to make them universal. In an American theater interview, Lopez states, "I I was very naive, which is sometimes the best place from which to write. This quote proves that Lopez strives to be intuitive in his writing process. He encourages exploring naive thoughts when developing a story. These naive thoughts often come from a lack of wisdom and judgment, which stems from personal fears. This brings us to my final point, his writing philosophy. In an interview with NPR.org, Lopez states, "I've used it to ask the question, what are the responsibilities from one generation of gay men to another? What is the continuum? What have I inherited from the generation before me, and what are my responsibilities to the generation that has come after me?" I chose this quote because it shows that Lopez's intentions for writing is to plant questions in the minds of his audience members. This shows that not only does he believe that theater is for entertainment, but also for art. Art that makes us question the beauty of something. Lopez also states, "I wrote things that were unsayable for me, from my life. A lot of things from my past. I talk very openly about my alcoholism and addiction, places that it took me. I write very honestly about my damage, things that were done to me, things that I've done to others." This quote shows that Lopez isn't interested in skipping around tough topics. Honesty is something he believes is long overdue. He also expresses the need for validation for wrongs he's experienced and also self-ownership for wrongs he has done to others. He shows in his writing that there isn't such a black and white picture of what's right and what is wrong. In an interview with the New York Times, Lopez expresses, "My hope is that, while not presuming to speak for the younger generation, I have spoken to them, and that its members might come to my plays in an attempt to understand the life of someone who came before them, and who, for better or worse, through his words and actions, helped shape the world that they will inherit." I love this quote from him. It explores the idea that we have a much greater impact on the generation that comes after us. While he understands the younger generations will seek him out for answers, he strives to not provide them with one. Rather, to display his own experiences and to encourage younger generations to find their own version of an answer, to look within themselves and find their identity, rather than accepting the identity that older generations have claimed. In conclusion, Matthew Lopez is a creative playwright who seeks out universal truths. Throughout this speech, I've informed you of the playwright Matthew Lopez. We've discussed his life and career, his writing process, and his writing philosophy, and how they all are based off one another. How his life and career bleed into his writing process and his writing philosophy. This photograph from the play Inheritance, I chose this photo because I believe it demonstrates Matthew's life and writing. Raw, truthful, and universal. I'd like to remind you of the quote that I used at the start of my speech. I believe that this line sums up the ideas that Lopez strives to convey. It brings the idea of generations and what they inherit full circle. E.M. Forrester in the play Inheritance states, "You have no idea which lives you will touch, and which ones